The video opens with pure chaos, geese charging across the lawn, honking furiously. The camera cuts to Karen, the head of the HOA, shrieking in terror as she flails her arms, trying to escape. A woman trips over a yoga mat, another drops her green smoothie, and a third tries to reason with an enraged goose like it's a personal dispute. Freeze frame. Rewind sound effect. Text on screen. How did we get here? Well, let me tell you. The story rewinds to a few weeks earlier. I step outside one peaceful morning with my coffee, only to find a group of people doing downward dog on my front lawn. At first, I think they got lost, or maybe they mistakenly assumed this was a public park. But then I see her, Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, standing at the front like some kind of suburban yoga guru. I walk up and politely ask, "Hey, what's going on here?" Karen doesn't even blink. "Oh, good morning. We've decided to use this space for our community yoga sessions. It was just sitting here, and the HOA believes in optimizing common areas." Common areas? My privately owned lawn? I try to correct her, but she waves me off with an exasperated sigh. "Don't be selfish. You never use it. And besides, it's so much nicer than the cul-de-sac." I stare at her, dumbfounded. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a hostile takeover of my property, justified with HOA nonsense. I tell Karen this is not allowed. She gives me that smirk, you know, the one, the I make the rules smirk, and says, "Oh, but it is. As per HOA guidelines, we can utilize unused community spaces. It's in the bylaws." I rush inside, pull up the bylaws, and surprise, surprise, there's nothing about this. The wording is just vague enough that Karen is twisting it to her advantage. I go back outside to shut this down, but now the yoga class has tripled in size. Someone brought scented candles. There's a portable speaker playing soothing whale noises. Worst of all, a smoothie stand. I try contacting the HOA board. Guess who the president is? Karen. And guess who stacked the board with her friends? Karen. I call the police, hoping this counts as trespassing. The officer listens, nods sympathetically, then shrugs. "This sounds like an HOA issue. You should bring it up with them." I did. They are the problem. The next morning, I wake up, look outside, and choke on my coffee. Not only is the yoga class back, they've expanded. My lawn is now the official HOA Zen zone. There's a hand-painted sign staked into my grass. Karen stands at the front, arms raised, declaring, "Breathe in the positive energy. Breathe out the negativity." I stare at her. Fine. If Karen wants to bring chaos to my lawn, then I'll give her chaos. Cue dramatic music. Plan Goose is born. I wasn't going to scream, throw a tantrum, or beg the HOA board. No, that's exactly what Karen wanted. She thrived on making people feel powerless. Instead, I needed a revenge plan that was smart, legal, and utterly devastating. So, I did what any reasonable person in my situation would do. I pored over the HOA rulebook like I was studying for the most important test of my life. And that's when I found it, my golden loophole. A tiny clause buried deep in the bylaws stated, "All natural wildlife is protected and must not be disturbed or removed." My brain started connecting the dots. If I accidentally encouraged wildlife to settle on my lawn, Karen couldn't legally remove them. And I knew just the perfect creatures to invite. Geese. Finding the perfect weapon, honking chaos. Now, let me explain why geese are nature's ultimate revenge tool. They are territorial and aggressive if provoked. They will chase anything that moves. They poop constantly, on yoga mats, people, and anything unlucky enough to be in their path. Most importantly, they cannot be legally removed because they're considered a protected species in my area. I contacted a local farmer who happily agreed to loan me a flock of geese for a week. He laughed so hard at my plan that he gave me a discount. The geese would arrive Saturday morning, just in time for Karen's biggest yoga session yet. Setting the trap, Karen walks right into it. Now that I had my weapons of chaos, I needed bait. Strategic birdseed deployment. I scattered birdseed all over my lawn, especially where Karen and her followers set up their mats. Hidden speaker system. I found goose mating calls online, yes, that's a thing, and set up small Bluetooth speakers in my bushes. Every few hours, they'd play soft, subtle honks to pique the interest of any passing geese. Water source. Geese love water. I placed a kiddie pool in the middle of the yard, disguising it as a decorative pond. By Friday night, everything was in place. The yoga class was scheduled for early Saturday morning. The geese would be right on time. Cliffhanger. The geese have landed. Saturday morning arrived. As Karen and her crew set up their mats, they had no idea what was coming. Then in the distance, honk. I sipped my coffee and watched as 20 geese waddled onto my lawn, ready for war. It was time. The yoga session started like any other. Soft meditation music played from Karen's speaker. The scent of lavender filled the air, and the group stretched into their morning sun salutations. Then the geese arrived. At first, they waddled in slowly, pecking at the birdseed scattered across the grass. Karen didn't even notice. She was too busy leading the class in some deep breathing exercise. But then one particularly large goose stopped, lifted its head, and locked eyes with Karen. Honk! Karen froze. The class stopped moving. Someone giggled nervously. Then the lead goose charged. Yoga mat mayhem, the battle begins. The moment the goose lunged, pandemonium erupted. Karen let out a high-pitched scream and tried to sidestep the attack. Straight into another goose. One woman, still mid-pose, fell backward as a goose pecked at her shoelaces. A man attempted to stay calm, repeating, "They sense fear, they sense fear," just before a goose flapped aggressively at his face. Someone knocked over the smoothie stand in the chaos, spilling green juice everywhere. A woman tried to shoo a goose away with her yoga mat, only to enrage the entire flock. Karen's fight back, a losing battle. Karen, ever the HOA dictator, refused to back down. She grabbed a rolled-up yoga mat like a weapon and yelled, "You will not ruin Zen Sunday." Big mistake. The largest goose, clearly the alpha of the flock, took offense. With a mighty honk, it flapped its wings and charged. Karen's eyes went wide. She turned to run, but it was too late. The goose pecked at her ankles as she scrambled, slipping on a discarded yoga mat and landing straight into a pile of fresh goose poop. HOA emergency response, more failure. By now, the entire neighborhood had gathered to witness the carnage. HOA board members rushed in, looking horrified. Karen, covered in goose filth, shrieked at them. "Do something." One board member, clearly in shock, hesitated and then tried waving his arms at the geese. Bad move. The geese interpreted this as an act of war. Within seconds, he was chased across the yard, screaming. Another HOA member tripped over a yoga block and got surrounded. The entire yoga class had collapsed into chaos, with people running, slipping, and shouting as the geese took over their once peaceful sanctuary. Cliffhanger, the ultimate Karen meltdown. Karen, panting and furious, stood up, shaking with rage. She pointed a shaking finger at me and bellowed, "This is war." I took a slow sip of my coffee, smiled, and replied, "Good luck evicting nature, Karen." The next morning, I woke up early, eager to see the aftermath. My lawn, still fully occupied by geese. The yoga mats had been abandoned like relics of a forgotten civilization. The smoothie stand, knocked over, never to be seen again. And then I saw her, Karen, standing on the sidewalk, staring at my lawn like a general surveying a battlefield after a crushing defeat. She clutched a clipboard, her face twisted in determination. Her first move, calling animal control. I watched from my porch as an officer arrived, clipboard in hand. Karen immediately launched into a dramatic rant about how I had unleashed a biological attack on the neighborhood. She demanded immediate goose removal. The officer checked some notes, glanced at the geese, and then calmly said, "Ma'am, these geese are a protected species in this area. We can't remove them unless they're causing actual harm." Karen's eye twitched. Actual harm? They chased me. They ruined my yoga class. They pooped on my mat. The officer shrugged. "That's nature, ma'am." Karen turned red, stomped her foot, and shouted, "This isn't nature. This is a hostile invasion." The officer, clearly trying not to laugh, handed her a pamphlet titled, "Living in Harmony with Local Wildlife," and left. Karen screamed in frustration. HOA emergency meeting, the Karen tantrum. Later that evening, Karen called for an emergency HOA meeting. I attended, of course. Front row. With popcorn. Karen, still fuming, stood in front of the HOA board and delivered an Oscar-worthy performance. "This man," she jabbed a furious finger at me, "has deliberately released a flock of violent, unhinged geese onto our community. This is an act of terrorism, and I demand swift action." The HOA members, clearly uncomfortable, exchanged awkward glances. One finally spoke. "Well, the bylaws say all natural wildlife is protected." Karen lost it. "They aren't natural. He summoned them." Another member scratched his head. "Well, technically, they came on their own. And we can't really prove otherwise." I smirked. Karen turned to me, practically foaming at the mouth. You think this is funny, don't you? I took a slow sip of my water. Oh, I know it's funny. The board announced their decision. Since the geese are protected wildlife, we cannot take action against them. The HOA has no jurisdiction over nature. Karen stood there shaking. She wasn't just losing control. She had already lost it. Cliffhanger. Karen's most ridiculous move yet. After the meeting, Karen refused to accept defeat. Her final, desperate plan? She decided she would personally remove the geese. The next morning, she stormed onto my lawn, armed with a broom and a garden hose. The geese, sensing a challenge, stared her down. Karen took one step forward. The lead goose let out a battle cry. And then all at once they charged. Cut to Karen, running for her life, screaming, "I hate GEs." Karen had waged war against the geese, but nature had chosen its champion. Word of the great goose uprising spread quickly. Neighbors whispered about it. Videos of Karen's broom-wielding, hose-spraying meltdown started circulating in local Facebook groups. One particularly dramatic clip, of her getting chased across my lawn, arms flailing, went viral. The HOA board, already tired of her antics, began to turn on her. At the next HOA meeting, one member sighed loudly. "Karen, this is getting ridiculous." Another chimed in. "Maybe we should just let the geese be?" Karen's jaw dropped. "Let them be. They have taken over. Do you know how much goose poop I've stepped in?" A woman in the back shrugged. My garden's never been better. They eat all the bugs." More members nodded in agreement. Some even admitted they found the geese charming. The tides had turned. Karen sputtered. Her power was slipping away. The ultimate humiliation, caught on camera. Then came the final, crushing blow. A local news station picked up the story. Headline: HOA president declares war on geese and loses. Video clip: Karen covered in goose poop screaming, "I hate geese." It went viral. Comments flooded in. Nature always wins. The HOA got what they deserved. I stand the geese. Karen tried denying everything. But then, someone dug up security footage from a neighbor's doorbell cam. Full HD, slow motion Karen versus the geese, complete with dramatic honks. Cliffhanger: the final vote, Karen's fall from power. The HOA held a vote to determine Karen's future. For the first time ever, she lost. She was officially removed as HOA president. As the decision was announced, Karen stood there, shaking with rage. Then, from the distance, honk. Karen's face twisted in horror. The lead goose, her greatest enemy, had returned. Karen screamed in frustration, grabbed her yoga mat, and stormed off. I waved. Namaste, Karen. With Karen dethroned, peace returned to the neighborhood. The geese, having fulfilled their divine purpose, slowly migrated away over the next few weeks. My lawn, once a battleground, was now mine again. The HOA, now under new leadership, sent out an official update. New rule added: no unauthorized use of private lawns for community events. Karen's Zen Zone sign? Gone. But the ultimate poetic justice? Karen's new reality, karma in full force. The geese, now free to roam, found a new favorite hangout spot. Karen's front yard. She tried everything to get rid of them. Sprinklers? They enjoyed the shower. Fake owls? They knocked them over. Blasting loud music? They honked louder. Every morning, Karen woke up to the same sound. Honk. She couldn't walk to her car without stepping in goose poop. She couldn't water her plants without getting flapped at. One day, I saw her on her porch, utterly defeated, head in her hands. I smiled, raised my coffee, and said, "Good morning, neighbor." She just glared. Final line, the perfect send-off. As I turned to go inside, I heard it. One final honk. Karen let out an exasperated scream. I chuckled. Namaste, Karen. Hope you enjoy the Zen lifestyle. Cue dramatic honk. Fade to black. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more epic HOA drama. Ever had to deal with a Karen? Drop your best revenge story in the comments.